Hey y'all, it is November the 19th currently, 2025. And just checking in for an update. I want to talk to y'all about a couple of things that are pretty well obvious that we probably all thought about, but just to remind you of them. One is that we have way too much stuff. We have a lot, especially in America. I mean, I just think about other places where they don't have nothing, right? And perhaps it's better to have nothing. Perhaps it isn't. But it's really about mindset. And also, I have no idea how we don't crash and burn as a country and as the world here pretty soon. I have no idea how we wouldn't. Doesn't make any sense to me. But just to give you a little bit of context, down here below me, you might see, some of y'all might recognize what all these things are. The records, their albums, the 12-inch records. They used to make a lot of these back in the day. They still make them, I've noticed. For some reason, you can go to Target and find records of brand new music. I guess because they still make them. And that's pretty cool. I actually just happened to come across these yesterday, and it's kind of hard to tell because they're in stacks, but basically, more or less, 130 records that I got. And I got them for free. Mind you, hold on 1 second. Mind you, like I've mentioned before, I don't have money. Like, some people will find that concerning. Sometimes I find that concerning. But what blows my mind is that the world is my oyster, as they say. I have much more than I could possibly need just given to me, like just handed to me from out of nowhere. Thank God. God is the reason for that. These guys, found them. They actually kind of smell, and this is why I've kept them outside. I'll probably keep them outside for quite some time to alleviate the smell from them. I don't know. See, what I did is I saw them on the curb, ready to get picked up for trash. I thought, hell no, man, I'm going to go ahead and just take these. Now, my best guess is that somebody died. Or maybe they didn't die. Maybe they were hauled off to a nursing home rife with dementia, or maybe they just were like incapable of caring for themselves. Either that or they died. And before they died, my best guess is that these people were hoarders. It might just be one person. I imagine it is just one person. Was a hoarder and a recluse for whatever reason. And these people typically love cats. And these cats, have their way with the facilities. And everything winds up smelling like cats and stuff. And even though there's so many cats, the hoarding situation is as such that there's also rats and mice. That sort of thing. Causing a terrible smell. Right? But, however, it's just a day later and I'm noticing that the smell is kind of alleviating itself from the albums and the records. That's pretty good. Just as a brief story, I didn't realize how cheap. You can get it real cheap. Here in America, you can get damn near anything all the time. And not only that, you can get it sent to your damn house. Lots of times it's free shipping, and I don't even know how it's possible, but somehow they've made it possible. I actually do know how it's possible. Slave labor, that's the only way. Or perhaps robotics. Probably a fusion of the two in some other country. That's not good either. But however, like say for example, if you wanted to buy a record player today here in America, and I checked it out, you could buy one. Of course, not the speakers. I mean, they'll have like little speakers, some of them, but even still, like you could buy separate speakers if you want very loud music. You could buy that for like $50, less than $50, and that includes shipping. It's unbelievable. I didn't realize that because I don't know anybody who has record players. I've seen like a few in my life. And so I thought I was getting a deal. I went onto an app here on my phone and I found a place where I could pick up a used record player. It was just convenient. I wanted a record player because I got all these records. I wanted to try them out. The covers and everything, some of them are messed up. Some aren't so messed up. Of course, they all smelled, but the records themselves, the vinyl on the side, damn near pristine. Damn near pristine. So you can tell that this hoarder person, at least they had some priorities. They had some priorities. How do you not walk around the world smelling like a nightmare? I imagine you do. I imagine people just try not to smell you wherever you go. I figure that would be a priority. Not to some people. Smoking cigarettes, hanging out with their cats, wallowing in their feces is priority with some people. But, or maybe it's just a lack of priority. Their priority was keeping their records maintained, although, it's very possible that they forgot all about them and left them in a box. Who's to say? I couldn't tell you. Anyways, I thought I got a deal on a secondhand record player, which I didn't even need because technically I could have bought one brand new, shipped to my house for like less than $50. Ridiculous. And where I thought I got a deal was actually from a pawn shop. It was listed. I said, oh man, that's pretty dang cheap. Let me go to that in this pawn shop. It was on a rough side of town, or a rough part of town. There's, in San Antonio, I don't know if I had to guess, at least half this city is a rough part of town. Very rough. Right? And I didn't have to drive very far. From where I'm at, it seems as though you don't have to drive very far and you get to a place that really you should not feel comfortable at. And I just didn't feel comfortable there. And I didn't have any problems. Nobody came and tried to rob me or assault me or anything in this part of town. However, everybody looked rough. I'm sure some people would assault you and rob you. But they can't be assaulting and robbing everybody all the time, so I didn't have any problems. But everybody looked rough. There was all sort of people hanging out at bus stops, waiting for the bus. And there's some people just hanging out in front of places looking dingy, looking rough. Sometimes talking to each other in very rough ways. And, it's kind of disheveling. And I'll go down to these parts of town if I have business. But by no means do I want to hang out there. I wound up getting this secondhand record player, but it didn't have a cord. I had to special order a cord for it. And in fact, pawn shop lady plugged it into the wrong. She plugged the wrong cord into it. Might have broke the damn record player for all I know. I looked into it. We could have very well broke it. I might have a broken record player. I got the warranty, so I could take it back. Like if it is broken, I mean, I'll get my $30 back, right? But it almost isn't even worth it to go to that part of town. That's just a brief story of yesterday. It was a little bit frustrating driving to this part of town and not necessarily getting what I wanted. And I was very frustrated by that. Afterwards, I realized to myself, in my frustrations, it's like, I don't even know why I'm worried about it. A record player that I can easily just buy a couple weeks from now. Anyways, a brand new one if I wanted. And before yesterday, I didn't even have any of these records to play. I didn't buy any of these records. I got them all new. They're not new, but they're in pristine condition. They were just handed to me from God, from some dead person. Why should I even be frustrated by any of this? You know? It's just, to me, it's an example of abundance. I personally, and I imagine everybody in the world, but I don't know, here in America especially, I'm suffocating in abundance. And the slightest inconvenience will get me quite frustrated. Doesn't make any sense. I'm drowning in abundance. You know? And even on the rough side of town, I don't think people understand because they're poor. They're even more poor than me. They're looking rough. They're living rough. I got this weird feeling that they're in all sort of abundance. I was hanging out in the pawn shop on this rough part of town. It was down Fredericksburg Road inside 410 for the people who know. And no, it's not the roughest part of town. Certainly not. But it's too rough for my taste. I would never want to hang out there. Even these people had way too much possessions, man. In the pawn shop, you had any number of guitars and musical instruments and just all sort of stuff just there, ready to buy it. Not exactly costing a lot. They're not going without at all. They have a lack of money. But they don't have a lack of possessions. Or even if they do, it's very possible to get anything you want. Even in that rough part of town. Reminds me of John Lennon, right? And there's some John Lennon records down in those piles. And he was famous for saying, he wanted to get rid of all his possessions at one point. And I totally understand what he's saying. You get to a point and you realize, damn, dude, everything's so amazing. And it's just like all at my fingertips. And like, I got so much that I don't even appreciate this. Or it's like, maybe you do appreciate it. You appreciate it a lot, but maybe you just don't know that you appreciate it enough. How could you appreciate it enough? You got more than you could ever need all the time, everywhere you go. Perhaps it could affect your appreciation. Sometimes I think, just real briefly, I got all these records down here. But sometimes I think of the digital world. And all the stuff that's stored. And you can find it in archives. I mean, I would like to describe it as an ocean of saved material, from songs to speeches to whatever, videos, movies, and all this. It's more vast than an ocean. It's unfreaking believable. It's like a galaxy. And I'm like, how in the world how come God has made it so that we can store whole galaxies full of information and digital information? How is that even possible? And if you were to take all the information, the galaxies of information that we have, and you were to accumulate it all in one space, how big With the physical technology that we use to store these things, how much room would that even take up? Could I store an entire galaxy of information, not an ocean, a galaxy, inside my backyard if I wanted? Or not if I wanted, but if God wanted. Is that possible? Probably it is. It's unbelievable. We got a whole lot. That's what I'm trying to say. And also, we're poor as hell, but it's just because we do not recognize the opportunities. You know, we got retail goods and we're drowning in them. Okay. I personally, as poor as I am, I could always go not very far and get a hot meal. And I'm talking about within minutes. They don't have this in like other parts of the world. Not even close. What's the damn deal with that? At the pawn shop, people were fairly dumb. And God bless them. I'm not trying to rag on them, but they were fairly dumb. I looked at the people in that part of town, and everybody seemed fairly dumb and rough. And like perhaps they could rob you pretty if they wanted to, if they were just a little bit more down on their luck. But that's not necessary. None of this is necessary. People look at you got elites, and you wonder why they act so messed up. How come they treat people like cattle and everything? How come they just don't have no care for us or their fellow man? I think I understand it in a way, because when I was in a rough part of town, or a rough part of town, I was looking at people in the same way. Like, what is wrong with you? Just regular people, and be like, why do you look like mutants? How come you don't look good? How come you're dumb? How come you're so dumb? And totally get it. How do we have so many damn possessions and we just don't even need them? I believe it's because, in general, our priorities are all messed up. You know, we're consumed by consumable goods. We shouldn't even be making these sort of things. We should be concentrating on more important things, but we're not, and it's not going to change. Anyways, you know, I've been talking here long enough, but one thing I also wanted to mention was the end. You know, right now, there's an interesting thing going on in America in which there's some people who really want Donald Trump to succeed, the president. President Donald Trump. I want him to succeed, and I'm one of those people. I do want him to succeed and make us better, or give us more opportunity to not only survive but to thrive. And there's some people who would like that, but they've given up hope on Donald Trump. They see a lot of the things that he's doing, that he's done, and say, oh man, he's selling us out. He's a traitor of sorts, and he's just not doing good enough. We wanted him to do a lot better, and he's not. Seems to be doing the opposite, according to some people. And they're like, oh man, this Donald Trump, we got tricked and bamboozled into him being the leader of America. There's, of course, some people that hate Donald Trump. And it's the whole spectrum. There's some people who just don't know and don't care. All right. But I find it interesting that it really doesn't matter. If it wasn't Donald Trump, then who the hell would it be? If it was a Democrat, things would be way, way worse. It's interesting to me that things ought to be way, way worse than they are right now. And they're not. But I think time will catch up with us. And it's only a matter of time. And I imagine things will start to break down very, very soon. And part of me will be entertained by that. Part of me will be very terrified by that. Because some people think, oh man, well, I'll just fend for my family and this and that. That's what's interesting. That's what I've noticed. Sometimes I get down on myself for not being rich, not having a lot of money. But it's like, what's the point and what's the difference of being rich and being poor in my situation? Like, I can have whatever I want. If I was rich, I would just have more stuff of what I want. And meanwhile, all that could get taken away. For example, if I had like a health thing, if I'm in very bad health, what does it matter my possessions? Secondly, if stuff were to really hit the fan like I know it inevitably will very soon, then all these poor, rough people from all over the place will come and eat my lunch, no matter how rich I am. If they can find me, they'll come and they'll take all my stuff. So what's the difference? It's wild. It's wild to think of these things. Anyways, I'm gonna get the hell up out of here and just truly try to enjoy myself in the moment, because there is no past, there is no future. I might die a terrible death, and it might be very soon. You too, as well. But right now, we are living in heaven. And what nerve of us, what nerve of myself to be living in heaven and to be frustrated over the simplest of things. God looks at it and he must feel some type of way about that. Anyways, I'll holler at y'all a little bit later.